My followers are starving? They're no longer starving? They're definitely starving. Oh my god! Welcome back, guys. Today, we're playing Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb is a roguelike dungeon crawler that turns Animal Crossing into a much darker message. However, today we'll be doing it with a twist, by trying to avoid having a cult at all costs. Welcome to the Lamb. To start, we'll have to make a fresh save, since my other one already has a cult going. Once we've started, we find ourselves walking down the aisle, except it's to get murdered, not married. The guys in the back here are some sort of sexual deviants who get off by watching me get beheaded, and claim that I'm the last of my race. Basically the same start as Skyrim, except this time you're being saved by a weird guy in chains rather than a dragon. However, the only way that he will save us is if we become his servant, which we didn't have much of a choice of anyways. With our life signed away, we get a little hat and a sword that we can use to beat up those cultists who almost killed us. On the way out of this place, we run into an old man named Ratau, who, based on his little papier-mâché hat, was probably the keeper of the crown before us. We are then greeted with our first cult member who we're forced to recruit. Now here is where we're going to have to define the term cult, because unfortunately in this game, in order to progress, you do have to carry a certain amount of individuals with you to each step. The first region requires you have at least one follower to get in. The next region requires 7, 12, and so on. So we have to recruit people to move on in this game. And unfortunately we find ourselves with our first follower. Not only that, but Ratau has locked me inside my own cult and forced me to chop down wood. After doing his little tasks and completing the tutorial, he finally opens up the path and we finally start the challenge. First things first, we use our only follower to open up the door to Darkwood, the first area. And with that comes our first run in the dungeon. We start out with only 4 hearts and a measly little weapon. We can use these to fight through the lands of the dungeon and make our way to the first of 16 bosses, Amdusias. You heard me right, 16 bosses. In Cult of the Lamb, there are 4 regions: Darkwood, Anora, Anchor Deep, and Silk Cradle. Within each region is 3 mini-bosses, followed by the final boss of that area, which is always a bishop. That's one of those guys from the beginning of the game. So, back to Amdusias. He's the first one on our list, and is also probably the easiest boss we'll fight all day. I killed him in like 5 hits, and didn't take any damage. You can also recruit all the bosses that you kill, since they aren't actually bad people and have just been possessed by these evil bishops. With him killed and recruited, we've knocked out the first boss of this region, and come one step closer to opening the door to the bishop. And my reward was Ratau locking me back in again. I thought we were done with this tutorial shit. Instead, I've been forced to recruit another person and build a shrine. Do I have to do this? Ratau also gave me a free follower, which was simply a trap to make me participate in his little cult affairs, forcing me to unlock a temple. This is only one of the many buildings that you would typically use in a normal run to unlock more upgrades for your character, but again, we won't be using these. Okay, except for this upgrade, which was also mandated by the tutorial as well. Everything I've done so far has been out of my hands, but starting now, we will not be building a single building, cooking a single meal, or receiving a single upgrade. The goal is simple. We head back into the dungeon, we hope to rescue as many followers as possible, and we make our way to each boss, which on this second run was Vallifar. He managed to get a couple hits in on me, but I dealt with him pretty easily and then recruited him. When you recruit followers like this, they don't go straight to the cult. They sit in limbo in that little portal in our cult. While they're there, they can't chop wood, pray, or do anything really useful, which helps us maintain our no cult values. They also can't starve or lose faith while in the pool, which helps us hold on to them until we need them. So, with 2 bosses down and no cult, there isn't much to do besides head back into the dungeon and look for a follower to rescue, ultimately hoping to enter the boss's lair. In this case, it was Barbatos. He was honestly super easy and let us move on pretty quickly to our next run. In this run, we were introduced to Leshy, the bishop who controls this area. The weapons you're given are random and they're always level 1. You kinda have to hope for something different or better later on. This is something you could change with upgrades, but once again, we're not doing that. Luckily, we were able to find a level 2 weapon and a level 2 spell in the dungeon before heading into the boss fight with Leshy. Honestly, he looks really menacing, but the most dangerous part of the fight isn't him. It's the little things that he can spawn, which can easily overwhelm you if you're not careful. I tried to focus on them and get as many hits in as I could on him, ultimately making him literally explode. And then we stole his heart out of his chest. The downside of such a gruesome kill is that we don't get the chance to recruit him, which also means we're down a follower now. Luckily, that shouldn't affect us too much because we did recruit one person on this run. With Leshy 6 feet under, we had officially cleansed this area and we were one step closer to our goal of beating the game. And we're on to the next region, which requires 7 followers to unlock. So I quickly removed 4 people from the follower pool and recruited them so we could open the door to Anura, our second area. Once we entered our second area, we were given a new weapon, but then we immediately got bullied by Heket, the next bishop. She used her powers to make one of our followers, Valafar, go hungry. Now, I don't really care about Valafar because we're not running a cult. He means nothing to me. But, like we talked about, I do still need them to be alive in order to open each door to each region. And if they're dying of starvation, that's not going to happen. And since I already said I wouldn't build anything or cook anything for them, this meant we were basically already down a follower. Regardless, we made our way to the first of the 3 mini-bosses, Gusion. Gusion was super easy, and I managed to clear him without even taking any damage. Shortly after that, I found myself fighting Elagos, the second boss. He was more difficult than Gusion, but still pretty easy to kill. And with both of them down, we moved on to the third mini-boss of this area, which was Zapar. Thanks to a tarot card that caused poison damage and my spell that was causing poison damage, we also took care of Zapar pretty quickly. I did manage to save a couple of followers during those runs and save another one on the way to fight Heket. And after clearing some more rooms, I got a level 2 spell and walked into Heket's lair. My poor gear combined with her crazy moveset was not a good combo. The amount of little people that she was able to spawn and the speed at which she could hop around the map made it feel tiny. As a result, I took a lot of damage here and there from either her or her minions, and at one point went all the way down to half a heart before managing to clutch it out. Killing Heket put us officially at the halfway mark of this challenge. But back home, my followers were also reaching their halfway point of this challenge. Most of them were gonna die soon from starvation. And because of the day-night cycle, the speed at which I clear these dungeons actually does have an effect on their livelihood. And if I'm not quick enough in the next 2 regions, the run could be over. That being said, we needed to recruit followers as soon as possible and get the next door open. The next region was Anchor Deep, led by the Bishop Calamar, who introduced himself so nicely by making one of my followers gravely ill. This may not have been a big deal, but followed by unlucky map layouts that didn't have any followers, meant that we were kind of low on our numbers. Regardless, I pushed on and entered the boss room to fight Salios, which did not go well. Oh! 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 Please, bro! What is happening, bro? We made it. We made it. We're okay. I almost just died, like, in the cutscene, though. With Salios barely defeated, we moved on to saving another follower before fighting the second mini-boss of this region, Habarim. I think this highlights an issue that I was running into a lot, which was overestimating my damage. I would play fast and loose to try to get in and deal damage, but with a level 1 weapon, I was just tickling the boss, and my fast and loose playstyle was only resulting in me taking more damage than I needed to. Even though I went all the way down to half a heart and almost died, I was able to finish it up. And at this point I had no idea how many followers I had. We were only one more boss away from Calamar. So I went back in, rescued another person, and entered the lair of the final mini-boss, Beelzebub. Thankfully, Habarim was a wake-up call for me, and I did way better on this boss fight, defeating him super quick. This meant we could come back right away and fight Calamar face to face. I took my shitty items and went into the dungeon, but immediately ran into an issue with the map. Alright, where is a fall? Can I not look forward anymore? Bro, it's as far up as I can look. What do you guys think is up there? I feel like the one that has like a heart tarot card icon looks like it might be saving someone. I think I'm gonna go that way. And after fighting some more enemies, I found out that I took the wrong path and missed a potential follower. And with how often our followers die or get cursed, this might have been the one that stops us from beating the game. Either way, we pushed on, and I found some upgrades before finally entering the boss fight with Calamar. Even with our level 2 axe, the damage we were doing was pitiful. Even the little guys took 3 hits to kill. And considering he could just keep spawning them, it was difficult to keep up. Not to mention the bullet hell that he could use his bell for. This boss also highlights an issue that I have with the models. Since they're 2-dimensional drawings but float around in a 3-dimensional space, it can be really hard to tell where the hitboxes are. Like, this shouldn't hit me. You can see the mark on the ground where it hit, and it's not even close to me. This meant that I was already down to half a heart, and there were 10 enemies on the screen besides the boss. That, plus the bullets, was just too much for me, and I finally had my first death. Luckily, our deal with the devil encompasses the ability to come back to life, but dying does pass time in the game, which meant that once I returned to the real world, I found 3 more of my followers dead. Not only that, but we still had to fight Calamar again, which meant more time wasted. Luckily, it wasn't too much time wasted, and we made it back to Calamar pretty quickly. Upset with how I handled things last time, I took this one more seriously and locked in, eventually making him explode and ripping his heart out. With Calamar gone, we had only one more area to clear out before beating the game, 12 out of 16 bosses down, but the next region would require 12 followers to get in. So I went back and started recruiting. Although while I was recruiting my followers, the ones behind me were literally dying. We had entered a true race against time at this point. Would I be able to recruit 20 followers to beat the game, or would they all starve first? There was only one way to know, and that was going back in. Of course, I was immediately greeted with more bullshit, as the bishop of this region forced me to kill one of my own followers. This wouldn't be the last time this happened to me either. Later on, she made me do it again, but this time killing 2 of my own followers. And at this point, I knew the run was basically over. But I wanted to see it for myself. I wanted to know for sure that it was over. So I pushed on and killed boss after boss after boss until eventually the region was cleared and we had defeated 16 out of 16 bosses. But beating all the bosses didn't mean you beat the game. There was still one final area we needed to enter, one final boss we would need to kill, but it would require a whopping 20 people. In between the boss fights earlier, I was able to save a couple people here and there, but I didn't know if that would be enough. I would have to recruit everyone we had ever found and see where we stood. Okay, where are we at?
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Woo! And how many do I need to pass?
6.
Ooh.
100.
What?
I had gotten so unlucky. The fact that I couldn't see the map earlier, and the fact that I had to kill 3 of my own followers, meant that I was short. But maybe, just maybe, if I went quick enough, we could still get 2 more followers and beat the game. I was able to purchase 1 from the spider lady, and I headed back into Anchor Deep to look for the other one. And I managed to actually get pretty lucky and find one inside Anchor Deep that we could recruit. But just a couple minutes later, one of my followers died of starvation. Luckily, because we killed the boss of this region once already, a new boss had taken over, Witness Astaroth, which meant that similar to the bosses, if we were able to defeat him, we could recruit him afterwards, adding 1 more to our cult. This would put us at exactly 20. But then I accidentally continued my run instead of going home and was forced to kill myself. But on the bright side, we had actually hit 20 followers and could officially attempt to beat the game without ever having a cult. Now, the downside of choosing not to have a cult meant that we were going to have to fight the final and hardest boss of the game with level 1 weapons. And maybe if I was better at the game, this wouldn't be an issue. But let me tell you what. This was hard. You have to first defeat Ball, who is a powerful boss on his own and has some really hard to dodge moves like these spikes that come out of the ground. This fight is immediately followed by his brother Aim, who has an even quicker and more sporadic moveset, making it hard to get hits in, especially when you do so little damage. And then after all that, your reward is fighting a harder boss in the form of One Who Waits. Wait, he's actually not that hard. Oh yeah, never mind. He has a second phase. And the second phase is really annoying because you basically have to fight 3 little bosses at once. These eyes shoot bullets in all different patterns, so with all 3 alive, you just find yourself in a constant bullet hell. Not to mention the actual bullet hells that come in between, as well as spikes popping out of the floor. Unfortunately, with the minimum amount of hearts and such low damage output, I just couldn't keep it together, and I died. And then I died again. But on my 3rd try, I had finally figured out what I needed to do. I took the level 1 gloves because they have a damage boost on the 3rd attack in a combo, which meant that they had the speed of a dagger, but the damage output of an axe. Once we entered the arena, I put down a very clean Ball fight, only taking damage once before killing him. With the heart that he dropped from dying, this meant that basically nothing had happened to me. The Aim fight went almost the same. Again, I only took 1 damage before killing him, and he dropped a blue heart, which meant that technically we had gained health since we walked in here. Of course, for some reason, I just threw all this health away as soon as I saw the first phase of the One Who Waits, where I took damage 4 times. His little minions and bullet hell were just too much for me to handle at once, and with so little damage from the gloves, it was hard to keep up with the rate that they spawned at, but I was tired of losing. So when the eyes came out, I locked in, until eventually, I took all 3 of them out and was able to fight the man himself. But just like that, I proved that you can play Cult of the Lamb without a cult. Your base may look like this, and it may hurt emotionally, but it is possible. I think if you use the quick start option in the menu, you can potentially skip the tutorial and have even less of a cult, but I'm not sure. So if you try this out, let me know how you did it, and maybe I'll come back and try it again on a harder difficulty. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.